Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, March the 4th. Today is Thursday, March the 4th. And before we just jump into our lesson, we've got a retrieval practice document to complete. So you're going to go to the very first slide, which I'm on right now, and you see the link. It says retrieval practice link. So you click on that. And this is something that we usually do every Monday and Thursday for all of our subjects. As reading, math, science, and social studies when we do have social studies. And math retrieval here. What is your name? Make sure to put your first and your last name in here, guys. This is how we identify who you are and that you're taking it. And don't use anything that's not your name. So who is your teacher? So whoever your homeroom teacher is, just locate their name and then you click the bubble beside their name. If you could change one rule that your family has, what would you change? All right, so the first question again, if you could change one rule that your family has, what would you change? Just type a really short answer in here. What is that rule that you like for your family to not have, or if you want it to be different? Next, what does the word sum mean in a math word problem? So choose your correct answer down in here. What is half of 24? Choose the correct answer here. And lastly, of all the things you are learning, what do you think will be the most useful when you are an adult? And it could be for any of your school subjects, including your specials. Of all the things you are learning, what do you think will be the most useful when you are an adult? Just type your short answer in here. It doesn't have to be very, very long. Just make it could be one sentence. And then when you finish, go on and hit submit. So once you finish, then go on and click on submit for that one. All right, so we have completed the retrieval practice document, which was the first thing that we did. And remember, if you're watching this at home and you're not attending our live session for any valid reason, you can pause this video as often as you need to catch up or to to write down any notes that you need. So today we're going to be looking at Unit 6, Lesson 4, representing decimals. So representing decimals is what we're focusing on today. On the next slide, you got your multiplication table I've got for you as a resource. And the next two slides, this is where you will insert a picture of your work. If you're working in your notebook or if you're working in the binder, in order for your teacher to be able to see your work, you have to include it in here if it's not an automatic document that they can see. Our learning target for today, I can represent tenths and hundredths, fractions and decimals on a number line. So we're focusing on a number line. Our essential question, how does the place value of the digit within the base 10 system affect the value of the digit across the decimal point? And what is the relationship between fractions and decimals? So our first task is using paper and a pencil or a whiteboard. So some of you do have a whiteboard that we sent home in some of our supplies. So you can use that and a dry erase marker. So but if you don't have that, you're gonna use paper. If you got loose single sheet papers, loose leaf paper, you can use that. If you don't have the single loose leaf paper, then you can use your notebook. So we're gonna create a number line. So I want you to create a number line, and I want you to use the entire length of the paper. So you're gonna use the entire length of the paper, not just a half of it, but you're gonna draw your number line from one end of that paper all the way to the other. And let's use the long part of the paper. Okay, so we use the long part of the paper. And you're going to do your number line is going to be 0 to 1. So your number line on one end is going to be 0. On the other end is going to be 1. So you're going to go on and label those. And I want it to look like this. So I want your number line to look like this when you write it on your paper. So I want you to go in and pause the video so that you can do that in your notebook or single paper if you got, or even on your whiteboard. All right, so you've had a chance to draw your number line on your entire sheet of paper. So you did a long number line on your entire sheet of paper, and it should have gone from one end of your paper to the other, because we're going to fill in some places on that number line. So we got to make sure that you've got enough space on there. That's why we needed you to make it pretty long. Okay. All right. So we're going to fill in and fraction in equal parts that number line. All right. So the first part, we're going to put in 1/10. So we're going to put in 1/10 in there. So I want you to go ahead and make a little mark there. Draw your line. You know, a little short distance from the 0. Remember, this is closest to 0, and we're going to get 10 of these in there. So we're going to get a total of 10 in there, but we're going to label them all. So the first one is going to be 0.1 or 1/10. This is the decimal version at the top, and I've got the fraction version at the bottom. So you are writing both of these down. And you can pause this video as often as you need to. Next, you got 2/10. So you got the decimal version at the top, the fraction version at the bottom. And then 3/10, of course, we're just going in order. 4/10, and remember, pausing the video as often as you need to write down the decimals and the fraction. Now, it's very important that your decimal and your fraction they correlate with each other. Okay, so you can't mix and match these up. So 4/10 right here, 4/10 down here. Then you got 5/10, which should be the midway point, guys. So remember, 5, we practiced on drawing the number lines, and we talked about the halfway point should be right in the middle. So this one right here should be pretty much right in the middle of this entire number line. So from here to here, this is your halfway point. 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10. And remember, 10/10 will be right here at the end. So this would be 10/10, which is equivalent to 1. So remember, continue to pause the video as often as you need to. All right, so next at the bottom, we're going to do the hundreds. So we've got our tenths in here. So we're going to do hundreds at the bottom down here. So this is where the hundreds should be. So I want you to, so you're going to be able to kind of approximate these right here. I'm not going to have you to draw this entire diagram at the bottom right here, but when I put in the actual hundreds numbers, I want you to make sure to put it to write it right down underneath where it should be. So I still want you to write in the fraction for the hundreds. So you don't have to draw all this that I have down here, but when I put up the hundreds fractions, I want you to put those in there. Okay. All right. So where are hundreds located? All right. So we got 10 hundredths. So we got 10 hundredths right here, and it is in the same place as the 1/10. Okay. So you got 10 hundredths. It is equivalent to 1/10, so they're in the same place actually. So when you put 10 hundredths in there, you should make sure to put it underneath the 1/10. 20 hundredths should be directly underneath the 2/10. They're equivalent. 30 hundredths should be directly underneath 3/10. 40 hundredths should be right underneath 4/10. So you're writing in the hundredths fractions that I have, and you're putting them directly under whatever the tenths should be. So 4/10, and then right underneath that, you've got 40 hundredths should be written right in here. 50 hundredths, 60 hundredths, 70 hundredths. This is showing equivalency, guys. So 70 hundredths is equivalent to 7/10, and it's the same as the decimal form of 0.7, which is 7/10. So 80 hundredths, 90 hundredths. And guess what? If we went one more, we're not going to show it, but this is going to be 100 hundredths right here. It's equivalent to 1 whole. So pause the video as often as you need, but I want you to write in the hundredths fractions, and I want you to put them in the correct place underneath the fraction that it is equivalent to. So on our next slide, let's think back to our place value blocks. What would 400s look like? So what do you think 400? We've we had an example like this on one of our slides. What would 400s look like in this 100 grid? How many would be shaded in? Okay, so this one's actually representing 4/10 or 40 hundredths here. So this is 4/10 or 40 hundredths here. All right, so this is what our 400s would look like, guys. When we think back to our place value blocks, now let's go and go to our next slide. Where would you put your hundreds on the number line? So where would you put your hundreds on a number line? So I've got a link right here for you to click on. So it says number line length. I want you to practice putting your hundreds on a number line using our number line here. Now, there's a few different things that you can do with this number line. So when you click on the number line link, this is what it looks like. Now we can actually change our number lines the way that it looks. So if you look up here, it says line settings. So what we're going to do is we're going to do decimals for this one. Okay, so we're going to do decimals. So you click right there, and then you're going to choose the, we're going to choose the hundreds. We're going to choose the hundreds decimals, which are going to be right here. Then we're going to click done. Okay, so now these are our hundreds are represented here. So our hundreds are now represented on this particular number line. So you got 100s, 200s, 300s, 400s, 500s. So I want you to practice with this, just identifying and locating or being able to manage that number line. All right, so for our next activity, if you're in our live lesson, you're going to be put with a group, possibly. Your teacher may put you with in a breakout group to work on a few slides. We got about, see, the next 13 slides we're going to work on to represent the given decimals on the number line. So if you're working individually, you're still going to be able to get your practice in, and I want you to work on these on your own. So the next slide, directions. So you're going to look at the bottom of each slide to see the decimal that you need to represent. Then you're going to shade the appropriate model. So you're going to choose which model that you're going to use, going to work with, the tenths or the hundredths block. Then you're going to drag the green arrow on the number line to represent to the appropriate place on the number line. So you're going to click the help button to watch a video tutorial of how to complete the activity. So if you need help, I'll walk you through the first one. If you need help, you just click right here. And this is a little short video that kind of explains how to shade everything in and how to move the number line down. Okay, so I'll show you that. But the help button is going to be there for you to work on. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our first one. So you go down to the bottom, it says show the decimal 0.1, which is 1/10. So you're going to show that decimal 1/10. So you're going to need to shade it in like we've done on our previous lessons on one of these grids. And then you're going to have to move the arrow to show where 1/10 is. Okay, so on this first one, I'll go ahead and show you. So show the decimal 1/10. All right, so I have to choose, am I going to use the hundredths grid or the tenths grid? So this one, it will be more appropriate for me to use the tenths grid. So that means that I'm going to come on this side and I'm going to click. I think I'm going to need one column shaded in. So I'm going to click right there one time, and then I'm going to go to the paint bucket. So I click once there inside the grid, and I'm going to go to the paint bucket, and I'm going to choose my color. So I'm going to make it red. So now I've represented 1/10. So I represented 1/10. So now my next step is to go down to the arrow. So I need to show it on the number line. Where is 1/10? So this is broken up. This is a number line from 0 to 1 like we practiced. And there are 10 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is right in the middle. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 equal parts. So I need 1/10 of this entire 10. So I take my arrow and I just drag it over here, and I'm going to get it right above that, the first notch. So I've got 1/10 right here. And also you can use your, once you get it in a place, if you kind of close, let's say if I'm at 9, I can actually use my the arrow key on my keyboard to move it over. So I can use the arrow key on my keyboard to move it over 1. Okay, so I could have done that from the very beginning. All I have to do is click on it, and I can move it. Use my arrow to click 10 different times to move it over. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a 10. So I've got it right there at 1/10. Okay. All right, so we got that one done. That's our very first one, and there's a few of them. So let's go ahead. Maybe we'll look at a second one together too. All right, so this one says show the decimal 10/100ths. So show the decimal 10/100ths is what's listed there. So I got to choose whichever one is appropriate. So this is the hundreds grid, and this is the tenths grid. So I'm going to use the hundreds grids this time. So I'm going to click in the hundreds grid, and I'm going to need 10 of these. So I'm actually going to use the shift and the arrow down on my keyboard. So I've got one, but I'm going to use the shift and the arrow down, and I'm going to do 10. 10, of course, is going to be this entire column. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I use the shift and the arrow key. So now I've got to go to my paint bucket without hitting anything else. Going to my paint bucket, I'm just going to do red again. So then when I click in there, the red is highlighted. So I've got 10/100ths here. So now I need to move my arrow. So I'm like 10/100ths. And if you think back to the number line that we did, guess what? 10/100ths is equivalent to 1/10. So 10/100ths is equivalent to 1/10. They are equivalent because when I go back and I go back to our previous slide, this is 1/10. It's got one column that's shaded in, and I go to 10/100ths, the same amount is shaded in. They're equivalent to each other. Okay, so we've done the first two together. So there's quite a few more that I want you to work on your own. So you got this one says 61/100ths, 99/100ths, 7/10ths, 70/100ths, 4/10ths, 35/100ths, 15/100ths, 23/100ths, 75/100ths, 89/100ths, 40/100ths, and that is going to be the last one in this activity. So we're going all the way up. So I've done the first couple for you. I want you to pause the video and just work on the next few of them to get those done. All right, so after you've completed that exercise, guys, we do have an exit ticket for today. So there's an exit ticket for a grade that we all need to complete. Now, this exit ticket is on a form, so I've got it on a form. And I'll show you that in a second, but this is also on page 19 in your binder. So the exit ticket is also on page 19 in your binder. So remember, if you do this in your binder on page 19, you have to take a picture of your work and insert it into the slides. In order for your teacher to know that you've done it, you have to take a picture of your work on page 19 if you do it on that page and insert it. But the most efficient way for you to do this is to click on the Google form. So you click right here, and it's going to bring up the Google form, and it says copy of Unit 6 Lesson 4 exit ticket. Remember to type in your first and your last name here. Say number one, which shows the equivalence to 4/10. So which one of these show the equivalence to 4/10? You get to choose. This one is A, this one is B, this one's C, this one's D. You choose the bubble for which one you think is equivalent to 4/10. And next, it says explain your reasoning. Explain your reasoning here. Then here it says write a fraction that is equivalent to 4/10. And once you've done those, go on and hit submit. So once you have completed the exit ticket, guys, on our next slide, it says for your independent work, this is you're just practicing play this game here to place the decimals on the number lines. You click right here, and you've got different decimals that show up. So I want you to just practice moving this to wherever you think it should be. This is 8/10 right here. So you're going to practice putting it where you think it should be. So this number line goes from 0 to 1 right here. This is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, which is right in the middle, is halfway. 6/10, 7/10, 8/10 is right here. Okay, so I want you to practice putting them where you think they should be. So these are the tenths over here, and I've got hundreds on this side. So practice on that for about 15 minutes. All right, so just a reminder on our very last slide here to make sure that you've done that exit ticket. That's going to be a graded exit ticket, and that practice with the decimals game. Also, guys, we want you to work on Dreambox and Khan Academy for 15 minutes each.